Hello and welcome to www.luxurytolast.com. Now today I'm going to go against the tide and I'm going to name the brands of watches which I think are absolute dogs and you shouldn't collect. Now please understand that these comments are my comments alone and they're my opinion, and certainly a lot of people may not agree with them. I've been a watch collector for 10 to 20 years, and these comments are based on my times in dealing in watches and my experience. So if you are offended easily by comments about watches, it might be a good idea to turn this video off now. Okay, firstly, what brands should you stay away from if you're looking at building a collection with retained value? Well, let's look at the other end of the scale. What are the two best brands for retaining value? The two top brands are Rolex and Patek Philippe. At the other end of the scale, what brand should you stay away from? Well, firstly, I would advise people to stay away from Tag Heuer. Now, Tag Heuer itself is a company which was reinvented after the original Heuer company went broke. And Tag Heuer really, in my opinion, is nothing but marketing hype with ETA movements and not much substance. The vintage Heuer pieces are certainly worth collecting. Like you've got the vintage Heuer Monaco, that's one of my all-time favourites. The Carrera. There are some beautiful Heuer pieces, but anything branded Tag Heuer, I'd give it the wide berth. It's really just marketing hype. I don't think anything bearing the name Tag Heuer is really going to be ever that collectible or that fantastic. So I'd tend to steer clear of Tag Heuer branded products. The next bit of advice is to stay away from quartz. Now, this same bit of advice applies to all brands and watches, including Rolex and Patek. Now, Rolex and Patek Philippe both had quartz pieces available. For ladies' watches, it's not so terminal if a watch is quartz, but for men's pieces, it really hits the resale value of a watch. Now, the biggest concern I've ever had when I've owned quartz watches is that what happens if the circuit fails? What happens if the watch fails? Now, with a mechanical watch, if a part or a cog is worn out or needs replacing, it can usually be replaced. However, with quartz, you're really stuck with going back to the original manufacturer for replacement circuit, and this can be very, very costly and often can exceed the second-hand value of the watch itself. So I'd tend to be very careful with anything quartz. The Rolex did have a couple models of quartz which are actually quite collectible, but generally speaking, I'd give anything quartz the wide berth unless you've got a special reason for wanting a few quartz pieces. Ladies' watches in quartz, they're okay, but men's, stay away from them. And sometimes you can be tempted. I know myself, I had a Patek Calatrava 3944, which was a quartz piece, and I bought it very cheaply for a Patek Philippe, 18 karat gold case, hobnail bezel, white dial. It was just had everything going for it except the movement. And the only way I can compare that is it's like buying a Ferrari and shoving an automatic transmission into it, and it's just a big no-no. The other brands which I think you should stay away from are these fringe brands. If you're buying a piece, try and buy iconic representations of the brand. For example, if you're buying an Omega, try and buy the Omega Speedmaster Professional, Man on the Moon watch. Some of the Seamasters are a great buying. And also, there's a great many iconic watches out there from Rolex Datejust to Jaeger Cultra Reverso. There's so many iconic brands and iconic watches there. Why would you buy a second-rate watch? Now, some second-rate dogs that are out there. Okay, this is from personal experience as a watch dealer. Stay away from Ebel. Ebel is next to impossible to sell. The only model of Ebel that I've ever really loved is the Ebel Beluga ladies watch. Besides that watch there, most Ebels are dogs. Another dog of a brand is Baume Mercier. Baume Mercier is famous for the Riviera, and none of those models have retained any sort of value, and they're complete dogs. Stay away from them. Second-rate brands. Another brand is Alfred Dunhill. I liked Alfred Dunhill for a long time, but I must confess the brand has gotten very, very soft. Dunhill's great to buy a bespoke dinner jacket or a suit, but as far as watches go, very, very soft. The other bit of advice I can give you as far as buying watches for your collection is stay away from anything that is gold plated. Now, what I mean by that is anything gold plated is trouble because the plating can come off. You're much better off to have steel pieces in your collection instead of gold plated pieces. And that's something that I've learned a long time ago. Stay away from the plated pieces. Now, Rolex also had some gold-plated pieces. Now, this is a long time ago because Rolex has been solid gold. And if a Rolex has gold on it, it is solid gold. It's not plated. They've done this since the 70s. Tudor had a number of gold-plated pieces, and even the two-tone pieces. Often the two-tone bracelets they were plated. The gold on it was plated. So my general advice is anything that's gold plated, stay away from. They have terrible depreciation. Sadly, I must say, in the watch collecting world, anything that's small by modern standards is starting to lose a lot of value. And this is quite sad because one of my all-time favourite watches is the Rolex Bubbleback. And the Bubblebacks are normally about 33mm across, and unfortunately by modern standards that's now considered small, and good Bubblebacks with nice original dials will always hold their own, but as far as collectability goes, the sports watches from the 50s and 60s by Rolex is certainly a lot more valuable than Bubblebacks, and that's a sign of the times, I think. So anything that's a bit small, I'd be questioning whether you should buy it or not. Mid-size is also a mid-size is really now a lady's large size. So I'd probably I'd steer away from mid-size pieces unless it's a really good price. So the other bit of advice is to stay away from anything which is just mediocre. And a lot of watches use a basic Valjoux movement. Now that can be a good and a bad thing. Tudor uses a Valjoux movement. Breitling uses a Valjoux movement in a lot of pieces. Admittedly, Breitling does use a high-grade Valjoux movement, but I tend to generally, unless the brand's got something really going for it, stay away from generic type movement watches. In Breitling's case, it's a Navitimer, and the Navitimer is one of the all-time classic pieces, so you certainly, it's not bad buying. But anything that's just like a Hamilton, I really don't see much investment potential or retained value in them at all. Bulgari has had some terrible depreciation on a lot of pieces. Beautifully styled watches, Bulgari, but as far as retention of value, give them a berth, a wide berth. Any duty-free type special watches, generally give them a wide berth. Cartier has some lovely pieces. The problem with Cartier is that they don't seem to keep the same watch for a long time. They will release a model and then they'll push it, and then a couple of years later it's dropped or it's reinvented itself. So that really does hurt the second-hand values of pieces. And with Cartier itself there, that's a big negative. So Cartier, if you're buying something in Cartier with its 18 carat, they're very good pieces to have. The investment potential's not as good as a Rolex or a Patek Philippe, but if you really like it, my wife's got a couple 18 carat Cartiers, and they're kind of they're also, two of those are quartz, so that's going against my advice. But for ladies' watches, quartz is okay, and if it's a classic type shape, it's also not too bad. So in Cartier, if I was buying something in Cartier, I'd try and go for a classic type of shape and style. I hope you found this advice interesting. Please don't bombard me with heaps of criticisms if I've mentioned a watch that you love and I've suddenly bagged it, because I'm trying to be as honest as possible. And this is just my experience from 10 to 20 years of watch trading. And if I have said anything to offend your favourite watch, well, such is life. That's how it goes. And I've got no axe to grind. I'm just telling you the truth from my experience. Please come to my free information website, www.luxurytolast.com, for heaps of free information and product reviews. Thanks very much.